So we just wanted to start off with an introduction. My name is Nora. I live in New Jersey. I'm 28 years old. I currently work for an ABA agency. So I'm working in home programs right now, a few different home programs.
My name's Taylor Burfiend. I'm 23. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm a special education teacher for the most restrictive environment in my county.
I'm Hope, and I'm coming in from Michigan. I am 23 years old, and I'm working as an ABA technician for a center that does both in-center and in-home therapy.
We hear you.
Am I on there?
Yep.
Okay. You're good.
So I'm Megan from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a special educator. I'm at a private school where kids with autism. And I've been a special educator for the past 5 years, and I'm currently going to be transitioning to a curriculum specialist at the school.
I'm Katie Svat. I am 27. I'm coming from Toledo, Ohio, and I currently work for Mercy Health Children's Hospital. I work at an ABA clinic. We do in-clinic and in-home services as well as some play services.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation up now. Can you guys all see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so we are doing a behavior change project focused on the study named Internet-Based Contingency Management Increases Walking in Sedentary Adults. This was conducted in 2013 by Curdy and Dallery.
So to review the original study, according to Centers for Disease Control Prevention, most adults exercise less than what's recommended. Due to the lack of exercising occurring, interventions to increase exercise is needed. The original study employed an internet-based intervention to increase walking in 12 sedentary adults over the age of 50. In this study, there were 2 experiments. In Experiment 1, participants received monetary consequences for meeting an increasing series of step goals. Across participants, steps increased 182% from screening to the end of the intervention, and 87% of steps goals were met. In Experiment 2, the study that we replicated, goals were set using the same schedule as Experiment 1, but no monetary consequence were provided for meeting them. Across participants, steps increased 108% from screening to the end of the intervention, and 52% of the goals were met. Across both studies, 11 out of 12 participants increased their steps. Along with our original study, we also provided some supporting literature. Article 1, titled Maintaining High Activity Levels in Sedentary Adults with Reinforcement Thinning Schedule. Physical inactivity is the leading cause of deaths. Based on recent studies, reinforcement interventions appear to be useful for increasing activity and preventing consequences related to sedentary lifestyles. In this study, participants were given pedometers and encouraged to walk less than 10,000 steps per day. 61 participants were randomized to a monitoring-only condition or a monitoring plus reinforcement thinning condition. At the completion of the study, researchers found monitoring plus reinforcement thinning maintained high rates of walking when it was in effect. Using monitoring plus reinforcement thinning also holds potential to extend benefits of reinforcement interventions at a low cost. In addition, results from the study demonstrate that walking, once established, can be maintained with lower levels of reinforcement. We also have Article 2, Preliminary Efficiency of Price-Based Contingency Management to Increase Activity Levels in Healthy Adults. Based on recent studies, the percentage of people in the United States who are obese has increased dramatically within the last 2 decades. In 2013, Disease Control and Prevention have reported a 35.7% obesity rate, an increase of 25% since 1980. Although these rates are based on individuals in the United States, the article states that this is a worldwide problem. This study targeted increasing physical activity by increasing the number of steps taken. So based on the literature, the supporting literature, and our original study, we could we needed significant need for effective low-cost intervention to increase physical activity. These interventions are needed to prevent and treat obesity. In addition, we also saw the participants who retrieved the monetary consequence for meeting step goals are more likely to increase the amount of physical activity.
So the purpose of this project is to gain experience in replicating published research and also to be both administrators and participants in a behavior change project. And the purpose of the study that we replicated is to increase physical activity through electronic goal setting and tracking.
So the participants in the study were all of us. We're 5 females, ages 23 to 32 years old, who can benefit from an intervention to increase their physical activity. So all of us before in baseline were either sedentary or engaged in very light physical activity. So participants include myself, Nora Bostic, 28 years old, Taylor, 23 years old, Megan, 32 years old, Hope, 23 years old, and Caitlin, 27 years old. The setting for our study included any location that steps had occurred. So any location that we were in that we had our cell phone and the app that was tracking our steps throughout the day. So this could be at the gym, walking at work, walking in the park, etc. Materials included were our cell phone, the MyFitnessPal application that was downloaded onto all of our cell phones, an Excel spreadsheet where we would input our daily step count from that day, and a Google document for our stored screenshots that were used for IOA and treatment integrity purposes. This will be discussed later in the presentation.
The behavior definition is steps per day are defined as total number of steps recorded by MyFitnessPal app on each participant's phone. The data collection system we used was the MyFitnessPal application. This can be downloaded on any smartphone for free. It is linked to step counters that are already into a smartphone. So when you get a smartphone, there's already a step counter on it. And what MyFitnessPal does is it links itself to that step counter. You can also choose other devices such as a Fitbit watch or other step counting devices. However, for the purpose of this study, we all used our phones to avoid having to purchase other devices such as a watch. On this application, you can adjust the step count to meet individual needs. So that was really helpful for us because we needed to set individual goals throughout the project, and this application allowed us to do that. It also produces a running count total throughout the day, and sometimes you have to press a refresh button just to make sure that it's showing you the correct amount that's been counted up to that point during the day. And also at the end of the day, it'll give you a daily count total. So then it takes all those totals and will also provide you with graphs that display your progress and kind of the trends you have throughout the week. You can also adjust the period that it shows you to show you, for example, a month worth of step counts, and then you can see what your progress and trends are looking like throughout the month. For us, it was useful to look at a week at a time.
So the experimental design used in the study was a changing criterion design. In this design, experimental control is demonstrated when the target behavior matches or closely matches the specific set criteria for each condition. So baseline was referred to as the screening period within the article. Baseline consisted of a 5-day block of tracking our daily step count with the MyFitnessPal application on our phones. Screenshots were uploaded at the end of each day before midnight of our step count for that day. And participants who walked either less than or equal to 6,000 steps per day were eligible. So we were all eligible for this experiment. During interventions, successive 5-day blocks were included. Within those 5-day blocks, we were allowed 2 rest days. So participants were required to meet their specific step goal within 3 days or more within that 5-day block. So the first goal was set by averaging the baseline days and adding 1,000. So if a participant's baseline average was 3,500, their first goal for their first 5-day block would be 4,500. If a goal is met, a new goal is set by increasing the previous step goal by 1,000. If a goal is not met, then the participant will remain at that same goal until it's met. Intervention termination criteria was when participants achieved either 10,000 steps or more per day, for 3 or more days for 2 consecutive 5-day blocks, or after 3 5-day blocks.
For inter-observer agreement, we decided to choose a designated IOA checker. This checker used screenshots in order to look at the participants' information. So I was the IOA checker, and I looked at 30% of the days. So I looked at participants' screenshots of what they logged, both on what was logged on their application and what they themselves put in on the shared Google Doc. So we had 2 observers in this situation. The first observer is the participant who looked at their own screen and then entered those numbers onto the shared Google Excel document. The second observer is the IOA checker who reviewed the screenshots that were on the MyFitnessPal application and the number that was entered on Excel to check if they match or not. For this IOA, we did a total count formula, and what happened is every single screenshot matched what was entered on Excel, so we met 100% inter-observer agreement. Here are some examples of what the screenshots looked like that participants submitted. As you can see on the left side of the screenshots, it has the dates of the week, and then on the right, it has the count for that day. You can also see on the right screenshot, we just wanted to show that there is some variation on phones. Sometimes there's an ad that pops up, but if you look lower on the screen, it has the same exact information, and the top has the same as well. For treatment integrity, participants took screenshots of their phones, including screens while turning on the MyFitnessPal app at the start of their day, turning the application off at the end of the day, and then setting their personal goals. So this is all the things that Nora talked about earlier in the presentation. In order to keep track of this, we wanted to use a checklist, and these were just emailed to all of the participants to use and check off each day that they participated. And just like we mentioned before, just turning on the step tracker, making sure that it was going to be tracking steps all day, inputting that correct amount onto the Excel document, and turning off the step tracker. Here are some screenshots to kind of give you examples of what participants see on their phone. On this first circled item, you can see that the participant is putting the check mark next to the phone. So this is telling MyFitnessPal that you want the phone to be tracking steps. As you can see below that, it says Apple Watch or added device, which is what we talked about earlier, and you can personalize that. But for this study, we all used the phone. In the next screenshot, you can see that the participant is selecting their daily step goal. So here they put 7,151 steps, and this was again just individualized per participant per week. And then in the last screenshot, you can see that the participant is turning off the application at the end of the night. So it's just saying don't track my steps, and the check mark is then placed there.
All right, here we have the tables and graphs that everyone set up for themselves. First, we started with baseline because everyone had a baseline condition. As previously stated, everyone had to be under 6,000 steps in order to be considered for this study. First up is Nora. She had a baseline average of 4,151, and her range was under 6,000 with a low of 2,276 and a high of 5,047. Her goal number 1 was 1,000 more than her average on her baseline, so it came to 5,151. Her average was 6,591, and her range varied from 5,632 to 7,444. She did complete this goal because her average was higher than her goal. Goal number 2, she was able to move on at another 1,000. She got 6,151 as her goal. Her average was 6,589, and her range ranged from 5,166 to 8,454. She did, even though she went below on one of the days, she did still meet her goal, and her average was above 6,151, so she was able to move on to goal number 3, which was 7,151. Her range was her average was 7,532, and her range was 7,047, and her high was 8,307. She again met this goal. At the bottom, you can see her graph. She clearly labels the phases from baseline to goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, labeling the goals, the step goals for each one, showing phase lines, and you can see that most of her days are above her lines, which is good, means she met her goals for most of the days. Moving on to number 2 is Taylor. So again, we had baseline, goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3. Taylor's baseline average was 3,459. Her range was 2,751 and a high of 4,347, keeping her below 6,000 as well, making her eligible for this study. Her goal number 1 was, again, 1,000 more than her average at 4,459. Taylor's average for goal number 1 was 6,653. Her range had a low of 5,663 and a high of 9,228. Taylor did achieve her goal number 1 and was able to move on to goal number 2, which was 5,459. Her average was 5,712 and a range of 3,446 to a high of 10,478. This one was a little bit more variable, but her average was still higher than her goal. Her goals that was set, so she was able to move on to goal number 3, which was 6,459. Her average was 8,363, and her range was a low of 4,943 and a high of 11,135. Again, a little bit more variable, but her average was still more, so she did complete that goal as well. Again, just like Nora's graph, Taylor has baseline, goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. You can see that most of her data points do go above the line, so she did meet most of her goals. Next is Megan. She had a baseline, goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3 as well. Her baseline was 3,244. Her range was 2,258 and a high of 4,250, which did again keep her below 6,000 and made her an eligible participant. Goal number 1 was 1,000 more than her average baseline at 4,244. Megan's average for goal number 1 was 5,294 and gave her a range of a low 4,538 and a high of 6,034. She did meet this goal, so she was able to move on to goal number 2, which was 5,244. For goal number 2, Megan had an average of 8,181 and a low range of 7,702 and a high range of 9,331. She again was able to move on to goal number 3 by beating goal number 2, and her goal number 3 was 6,244. Megan's average for goal number 3 was 6,684. She had a low range of 6,193 and a high of 7,258. She achieved all 3 of her goals, as you can see in the graph below. Again, all 4 phases are seen in the graph with almost all of her points above the lines.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the meeting is going to end just automatically in 10 minutes. So if that happens, I'm going to just send an invite to all of you again, and we'll just resume from the next one. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Moving on to Hope. Hope is, we had our baseline average of 4,662 and a range of 2,870 to 6,236. Her average did stay below 6,000, which made her eligible. For goal number 1, her average stayed at 4,662. Her goal stayed at 4,662. Her average for goal number 1 was 7,091, and her range was 6,396 and a high of 9,235. She moved up on goal number 2 to 5,662. Hope's average for goal number 2 was 7,862, and she had a low range of 5,697 and a high of 9,755. She did exceed her goal, or her goal set on all levels, so she was able to move on to goal number 3. Goal number 3 was 6,662 steps. Her average was 7,435 steps, and she had a low range of 5,503 and a high of 11,308. Below is her graph. Below is her graph as well, giving you all 4 phases, and all points are almost above the lines, which give her, she is exceeding her goals at almost every point. Lastly is Caitlin. She had a baseline average of 4,143 in a range of 2,795 and a high of 4,884. She stayed below 6,000, which made her eligible, and she kept her goal at 4,143 for goal number 1. Her average was 8,196, and her range was 128 and a high of 12,617. She did exceed her goals, so she was able to move on to goal number 2, which is 5,143. She had an average of 9,367 and a range high or a low of 7,359 and a high of 14,048. She again achieved the goal of 5,143 and was able to move on to goal number 3, which is 6,143 steps. Her average was 8,557 steps and had a low of 4,863 steps and 11,678 steps. Her graph is below with 4 different phases. You can see that most of the phases are above the lines. A couple of the points are variable with major lows, but for the most part, all of the goals were met.
So the conclusions based on those results was that goal setting improved each participant's performance throughout the study. Each participant experienced a significant increase in steps taken from their baseline steps. Nora had an 81% increase from baseline. Taylor had a 142% increase from her baseline. Megan had a 106% increase from baseline. Hope a 59% increase, and Caitlin a 107% increase from baseline. So this took the average of baseline to the average of their last goal and determined how much increase between those 2 phases. As goal setting was incrementally increased, average of steps taken for each participant also increased, which is also seen in everybody meeting each goal and moving on to the next phase. A functional relationship was demonstrated in some participants' experience between goal setting and an increase in steps taken, while others had more variable results. So we say there was a functional relationship with some hesitation in that how variable some of the results were. The limitations are pretty similar to what the limitations were in the original study. The FitnessPal app is different on an Apple and Samsung device, which didn't seem to pose any real threat to validity, but it is something to note. Steps are only tracked when the participant is in possession of the phone. So there's potential for more steps to be taken without them being tracked. The participant is not necessarily the person carrying the phone when steps are being tracked. There's no way to really determine whose steps are being tracked on that particular phone. And as in the original study, there are a lack of male participants, considering we're all female. And also as in the original study, weather conditions and other factors could have an impact on the participant's ability to go out and take steps and meet those step goals.
Should we go ahead and start a new call and then do a question section?
Yeah.
So I think you have 4.5 minutes, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think we can wrap this up. I mean, you guys did a fantastic job. You really set the bar high. I just have like a couple very brief questions, but I think we should be able to finish it. I just want to know, do you think that you would have had different results had you added any additional reinforcement other than goal setting alone?
I would say maybe yes. Maybe money, like in the first experiment, would have been a little bit more motivating. But yeah, I would definitely say money probably would be a good motivator.
I would have wanted more money.
Have you guys been able to keep it up?
It's getting a little cold.
It is getting a little cold.
But I have noticed that it like not walking around, I've noticed it more since.
Exactly. And I have my step tracker still going on my phone too, so I'm able to see every day exactly how many steps I'm getting in. So I'm more aware of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and what do you think? Yeah, overall your data were pretty stable, but what do you think could have caused some of the variability that you guys found?
I know for me, days that I wasn't at work, like
Yeah.
I work,
same.
I'm a teacher, so I walk all day. So like a Saturday, if we were tracking, like, yeah, I had to like intentionally go out and walk, which was definitely more of my lows. And then if I was like working after my regular job, those were like my 11,000 step days.
Yeah.
So that was my variability, definitely.
Okay, that makes sense. Anybody else?
Mine
Variability.
varied with kids because some of the kids I work with are very active, and so I'm chasing them around nonstop. And those are some of my really high days. And some of my other kids are a little bit more sedentary, like to do more table work. And those days I kind of had to make sure that we got up and moved around a little bit more than the other days.
So you could meet your goal.
Yeah, like let's get moving. I need to make steps.
That's great. Okay, well, I think that's it for me. You guys did an absolutely fantastic job. Wonderful presentation. Yeah, no, that was a real pleasure. All right, take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
All right.